Hi Mustangs, this is Mr. Greenwood. Today we are going to be learning another strategy for factoring using the split the middle method. But this time we're going to be looking at trinomials that have an a value not equal to 1. Okay, as you can see in this example, 3x squared plus 11x plus 10. Our a value is a 3 this time instead of a 1 as we've been seeing lately. Okay, so how do we tackle this one? Well, it's very similar to the strategy that we used previously. Okay, there's just one difference. Okay, so first, number one in our list of things to do for our strategy, we're going to multiply the a value times the c value again, like we did previously. Okay, so when we multiply the a and the c together, we're going to get 30 in this case. Okay. Step number two, we're going to determine a pair of factors of that 30 that we can combine together to get the b value of 11. Okay, so in other words, we're looking for factors of 30 where if we added those two factors together, we would get 11. Okay, so in this case, what we're talking about are 5 and 6. Those are those two factors that we're looking for, 5 and 6. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 plus 6 is 11. Okay, so that's what we need. Okay, so step number 4 says that we're going to rewrite the expression using a positive 5x and a positive 6x. Okay, so we're splitting this 11x, splitting that middle term into, instead of being an 11x, we're going to have it be a positive 5x plus 6x. 5 plus 6 is 11 plus 10. Okay, so now we're at a situation where we know how to group these. We've been doing this for a couple of lessons now, so we're going to group these together. Okay, now we're looking for the GCF, and we're going to factor out that GCF of this set of parentheses, and we're going to factor out the GCF of this set of parentheses. Okay, so in other words, what could we divide both of those terms by? Okay, well, in this instance, we can divide by just an x. Okay, all right. So when we pull out that x, factor it out, what goes inside the parentheses? We're going to divide here. Okay, well, 3 divided by, this is like having a 1 here. 3 divided by 1 is 3, and x squared divided by x leaves us with x. Okay. The second part, again, we have a 5, and we're dividing it by a 1, which is still 5. And then x divided by x, these x's will cancel each other out. They're no longer there. I mean, I'm saying they're no longer there, but what we really have is an x divided by an x is just 1. So it'd be like having a 5 times a 1 here, which is still just 5. Okay, so we have x times parentheses 3x plus 5. Okay. Next set. Okay, what can we divide both of these terms by? Okay, well, the largest number that we could divide both a 6 and a 10 by is 2. Okay, and since the only term that has an x is this first one, we can't divide by an x in this instance. Okay, so all we're doing is we're going to pull out that positive 2. Okay, and then we're going to divide. So 6x divided by 2 gives us 3x, and 10 divided by 2 gives us 5. Okay, and we're in good shape because both of our sets of parentheses have the exact same thing inside them. So now we're going to finish up by grouping our two GCFs together, the x and the positive 2. And then our two sets of parentheses that have the 3x plus 5 goes there. Okay, and we are all done. Okay, now we could check. Okay, we could check to make sure that if we distributed each of these terms by each of these terms, we would end up at the end with our original expression. Okay, Let's take a look at another one. Okay, here's another one. We have 3x squared plus 10x plus 3. Okay, so what are we going to do? First, we're going to multiply our a value and our c value together. 3 times 3 gives us a 9 there. Okay. So what we're looking for then, okay, we need to determine a pair of factors of 9 that can be combined to get that b value of 10. Okay. Well, the factors of 9, we can say 1 times 9 equals 9, so 1 and 9 are factors. And if we added or combined the 1 and the 9, we would get 10, our b value, which is what we want. Okay, so these are the two factors that we're going to be using here when we split the middle. Okay, so let's rewrite 3x squared plus, now instead of the 10x, we're going to have the 9x plus the 1x, okay? These two factors right here. And then plus 3. Okay. So now that we've rewritten, we can group the first two together, group the next two together. Now we're going to factor out our GCFs. Okay. So what can we divide each of these terms by? We can divide the coefficients by 3, and we can divide the variables by x. Okay. So we're dividing each of them by 3x. All right. So we pull out our 3x, that's our GCF. What's left in the parentheses? Okay, well, 3 divided by 3 is just going to give us a 1, and x squared divided by x is just going to give us x. So we'll have 1x here, okay, which we'll just write as x. Okay. Here, we have a 9x divided by a 3x. That's going to leave us with just 3. Okay. All right, second set of terms. What can we divide this term by and this term by? Okay, well, in this case, the only thing that we could divide both of those by is 1. Okay, so put a positive 1 out there. So divide by 1, divide by 1. Okay, well, as we can see, 1x divided by 1 is still just going to be an x, and 3 divided by 1 is still going to be a 3. Okay, and we're looking pretty good because both sets of parentheses have the exact same thing in them. Okay, so final step, we're going to group together our GCFs that we just factored out. Okay, so the 3x, the 1, okay, 3x here, the 1 here, and then our two common sets of parentheses with the x plus 3. And we are done. All right, one more. Okay, 3x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, and it's just coincidence that all of the a values were 3 in this lesson. Doesn't matter what that value is, the process is still the same. Okay, so we're going to multiply our a and our c values together. A times 8, negative 8 times 3 gives us a negative 24. Okay. So step 2, we want to determine a pair of factors of negative 24 that we could combine to get a b value of negative 2. Okay. So think about this. Okay, if we were to multiply a negative 6 and a positive 4, okay, negative 6 times a positive 4 would give us a negative 24. And if we combine those together, okay, we combine the negative 6 and the positive 4, we're going to get a negative 2. So these are the factors that we want to work with. Alrighty, so we're going to rewrite 3x squared. And now we're splitting this negative 2x. Okay, we're splitting that term up into these two factors now. Oops. Erase that. Okay, so we're going to have a minus 6x and a positive 4x, okay, and then our negative 8. Okay, and then as you can see, if we were to combine the negative 6x with a positive 4x, we get that negative 2x there. Okay, let's do some grouping. We're going to group together our first two terms, group together our next two terms. Okay. What can we factor out, or what could we divide both of these terms by? Well, it looks like we have a 3 and a 6, which both of those could be divided by 3. And we have an x squared and an x, so both terms could also be divided by an x. Okay, so we're going to factor out a 3x. So let's go ahead and pull that out, 3x. And then when we do the division, we're going to be left with just x. And when we do the division here, we're going to be left with a negative 6 divided by 3, which is a negative 2. And then the x divided by x, they cancel each other out. We just have x minus 2. Okay, second set. We're going to divide by the largest number that we can both of these terms. Okay, well, the largest number that we can divide by here is going to be 4. Okay. So we're going to factor out or pull out that 4 and then divide to see what goes in the parentheses. Okay, so 4x divided by 4 will leave us with just x. And a negative 8 divided by 4 leaves us with a negative 2. Okay, and again, we're looking good because both sets of parentheses have the same thing in there, x minus 2. Okay, last step, we're going to group together our GCFs that we pulled out. Okay, and this is a positive 4. Don't let me forget that, because it's a positive 4 that we divided by here. Okay. So grouping our GCFs, we have 3x plus the 4, and then x minus 2. Okay, and that is our factorization. We have 3x plus 4 times x minus 2. Okay, now before we go, I want to look at the same exact problem again, okay? But what if we had grouped the 3x squared with the positive 4x, and then grouped the negative 6x with the negative 8, right? So we just flip-flop these two from the last problem. Would we still get the same answer? Okay, well, let's check it out and see. Okay, so let's group again. All right, so we have a 3x squared and a 4x. The only thing that we'll be able to divide both of those by is an x. Okay, and then we're going to pull that x out as our GCF. Okay, so we have a 3x squared divided by an x, which will leave us with 3x. And then a 4x divided by x, which will leave us with 4. Okay. Okay, on this side, okay, what could we divide both a negative 6x and a negative 8 by? Well, we could divide both of those by a negative 2. Okay, so we're going to pull out a negative 2 here as the GCF and then divide. Okay, so a negative 6x divided by a negative 2 is going to give us a positive 3x. And a negative 8 divided by a negative 2 is going to give us a positive 4. Okay. All right, and we're in good shape again. Both sets of parentheses have the same thing in them. So our factoring then, okay, grouping our two GCFs together, we have x minus 2. And then our common parentheses there, the 3x plus 4. Okay, and yes, indeed, we got the same exact answer. Okay, in our previous one, we had 3x plus 4 times x minus 2. Okay, and this time again, we have x minus 2 times 3x plus 4, which is the exact same thing, right? Because if we're multiplying, the order doesn't matter. Okay, so we could even rewrite this if we wanted to, the 3x plus 4 and x minus 2. Okay, and we got the same exact answer. Alrighty, so today's exercises are going to be doing exactly this. You're going to be factoring where a is not equal to 1. So good luck, work hard on it, and be sure to ask lots of questions if you get stuck. Alrighty, take care.